Hi, everyone. I'm here today to talk to you about careers in business. My name is Micah Merrick, and I'm the Regional Director for Business and Entrepreneurship. I work with a group of folks called the Bay Area Community College Consortium, and I'm based at Chabot College in the East Bay in Hayward, California. Before I started working for the community colleges a few years ago, I worked in finance and business development for startups and investors in Silicon Valley. I received my education in economics from Penn State University, and I have an MBA in entrepreneurial management from the Wharton School. I want to give you an overview of what I'd like to discuss with you today. And to start with, I'm going to start at the very high level and answer a simple question. Why should you pay money and spend time to go to college? This seems like a really obvious question, but I think many people have a misconception of what the answer to this question is, and sometimes it leads to bad decision making. After I give an overview of that question and my perspective in terms of how to answer that question, I wanted to talk about a second question, which is should you get a bachelor's degree or not? Many of you will decide that you want to go to college in order to get a bachelor's degree, but many others will decide that the investment of 4 to 6 years of time and money may not be worth it. And so then I'm going to talk about what your options are in that event. And really, from my perspective, there are two main options I'd like to cover today: private boot camps and community colleges. And then within the community college system, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the best options in business at the community colleges if you're not going to get a four-year degree. So to start with, I want to answer this question that I posed in the previous slide, which is why should you pay money and spend time to go to college? After all, college is extremely expensive. Even if you go to a state school and have in-state tuition, it can still be extremely expensive to go. And it's not just a monetary cost, it's also the cost of your time and energy, taking years of your time to study and go to classes and complete assignments and things like this, which are years of time that you could be spent doing other things like working in the workforce or traveling or working with your family or spending time with other friends and family that you may have. So it's not a perfectly obvious question. Now, I really think there's two answers to this question at a very high level. The first answer is going to seem obvious because it's basically the reason that everybody thinks you go to college, which is to learn knowledge, skills, and tools. People want to get education because learning knowledge, skills, and tools can be valuable to getting a job in a specific occupation. So, for example, if you wanted to pursue a career in accounting, at college you would learn about the knowledge of accounting theory. This would be things like debits and credits, or it could be things about how you handle certain types of expenses and whether they're depreciable or not. The skill related to accounting would be how to create financial statements. So you may understand the theory of how to treat a certain transaction, but you may not know how to translate all of those transactions into a financial statement. A financial statement is a document that tells a business owner how the business is doing, how much money it's making, how much cash it's spending, and what the investments are that have been made in the business. Some of the tools you might learn in college would be the tools that we typically use in accounting to create financial statements or to apply accounting theory. Things like QuickBooks for managing transactions or Excel for building financial models or financial statements. So learning these skills, it obviously would help you to get a job in accounting, and that's a very good reason to go to college. And this could apply to many other occupations as well. I'm just giving you kind of a framework. The second answer to this question in terms of why to go to college is it's a little bit less well understood, but I think it's extremely important that you understand this concept. And the concept is signal value. What does that mean? Signal value. So when I say signal value, I mean the value that's associated with getting a bachelor's degree and the value that employers perceive you as having as an employee when you have the bachelor's degree. Signal value is quite high, for example, if you get a bachelor's degree in economics from Harvard University. That would be extremely high signal value. Now, what is that really saying? What we're saying about signal value is that large employers, particularly, when they're hiring candidates for a specific job, they don't look at every single resume. The sad reality is that they take many of those resumes, and if the resume shows that the person who with that resume does not have a college degree, the employer doesn't even look at the resume. They don't even evaluate it. It's not necessarily a fair system, but it's the system that many large employers use to screen candidates for the jobs that they want to hire. Now, the reality is that many jobs in business really require signal value. They require that you have a bachelor's degree to move on within your career. And this is just an unfortunate reality of the job market here in the United States. So, for example, in our previous slide, we were talking about accounting. You cannot today become a certified public accountant without a 4-year degree in college. So what that means is that if you want to have a long career in accounting, you pretty much need to go to college in order to get your CPA or become a certified public accountant. That's what CPA means. Now, this is very important to understand because what it means is that if you're not going to get a 4-year college degree, you need to be able to learn certain skills or certain tools or certain sets of knowledge that will really set you apart, even though you don't have that signal value, even though you aren't able to tell an employer that you have a bachelor's degree. So I'd like to talk about this process. There's many jobs out there in the labor market, and I wanted to show you that these jobs are basically on a spectrum. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see jobs where skills are more important. These could be things like nursing or computer programming. What that means is that when you go to an employer to try to get a job in that field, the employer is looking for you to possess a certain number of specific skills in order to get the job. So for example, in computer programming, you may need to demonstrate to the employer that you can program in Java. And if you can program in Java, they may not really feel that your other knowledge that you gain from a college degree is really all that important. Similarly, in nursing, you can become a nurse and have a lot of medical knowledge and skills in terms of how to work with patients and doctors, and it doesn't necessarily require that you go all the way through to college. Now, on the other hand, there are other jobs where the signal is more important. These tend to be jobs where measuring those specific skills is simply a little bit more difficult for employers. And that's why the employers are looking to use a shortcut of do you have a bachelor's degree or not? Now in business, something like if you wanted to go into communications or marketing, things like this, jobs where it's a little bit trickier to prove to the employer that you have those skills, that's where the signal value of a bachelor's degree is going to be more important. So as you're thinking about whether or not to go to college, it helps to work backwards from the types of jobs you're interested in. Now, I'm assuming that many of you are interested in pursuing a career in business, which is why I'm talking about the signal value. But you may be interested in other careers as well, and it's worth exploring. The reason why is that the more a job requires hard skills and where those skills are more important to get the job, the less you need to rely on going to college for 4 or 5 years to get the job. There are probably other ways. On the other hand, for careers where that signal is very important, it just is a lot harder to get your foot in the door and really prove to those companies that you can do those jobs without that college degree. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the spectrum of jobs and why it may be more or less important to get a 4-year college degree. So as I mentioned, many of you are likely interested in business. And because of the dynamic I just discussed, the fact that certain jobs require more skills and certain jobs require more signal, there's a little bit of a difficult choice for business students. And the reason is that many of the jobs in business require that signal value. You're going to get a much better job with the signal value of a bachelor's degree. And so before you start heading down the path to become a business person, you really need to be able to have an honest answer to this question. Do you have the time, the discipline, and the financial resources to get a bachelor's degree? Keep in mind that for most people, it takes 5 to 6 years to get a bachelor's degree, and it will take a lot of time and a lot of discipline and a lot of your financial resources in order to complete it. Now, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from pursuing college if that's what you really are interested in doing. Of course, I went to college myself, And for many people, it's a very good choice. However, the challenge is that if you decide not to go to college because maybe you lack the time, or maybe you don't feel like you have the discipline to go to school for 4 or 5 years, or maybe the financial resources is just really challenging, you're not interested in all that student debt. In business, the challenge is that there's very little signal value to many other of these degrees, like associate's degrees or certificates in business, unless you can get really valuable knowledge, skills, and tools to demonstrate to employers. So this is my caution to you. You really need to think about this question and try to answer this question, because if you're going to get a bachelor's degree, you're going to have a very different answer for what you're trying to do when you go to community college than if you're not. And that's what I'm about to talk about next. So let's say you're mulling over this question and you talk about it with your parents, your family, your friends, your teachers, your mentors, and you decide that yes, you really want to, and it is realistic for you to get a bachelor's degree. Well, if you're interested in careers in business, you have a very simple path ahead of you. I'm going to make this choice extremely simple. If you're going to try to get a bachelor's degree, you basically are just going to go to your local community college and get an associate's degree for transfer in business administration or business management. Now, the key words here are associate's degree for transfer. Many colleges offer associate's degrees that are not for transfer. They're just called regular associate's degrees. And I want to warn people against getting these. The reason why is that the education is basically the same between these two types of degrees. However, an associate's degree for transfer is a degree, it's an associate's degree, where all of the courses have been vetted ahead of time by the California State University system. And this means that the credits associated with that degree are guaranteed to transfer to the CSU system. Now, I'm kind of assuming that many people here are interested in going to CSU, to one of the CSU campuses to get their 4 years degree. And this is why this is so important. And again, if you don't end up going to CSU, if you decide to transfer to another school, you will not be harmed by getting an associate's degree for transfer. It is still an associate's degree and just as valuable as a regular associate's degree. However, it has the added benefit of guaranteeing that those credits transfer so that you don't have to take courses over again when you become a junior in college. And this is an extremely important thing so that you can guard your time and guard your money and make sure that the education that you're getting is going to lead to your goal of getting a bachelor's degree. The other thing I want to warn you about is that it's very important to work hard to get good grades. Now, I'm not trying to say this from a perspective of a parent kind of nagging you to get good grades. The reason it's important is that the campus of your choice in the CSU system, if you want to transfer into business, that campus will be determined by your grade level. In other words, the better grades you have, the more campuses are going to be willing to accept you. Even though your credits will transfer, there will be some CSU campuses that simply don't have space for students below a certain GPA. So it's extremely important that if you go to community college for those first 2 years to get your associate's degree for transfer, that you work as hard as you can to get good grades to give you the option of going to the campus that you want to attend. This is really important. And this is really, again, should be baked into your decision of whether to get a bachelor's degree in the first place. If you want to get the bachelor's degree, work as hard as you can, because what you're working on is your signal value. You want the signal value of the college that you graduate from to be really good. So if you can get into one of the better CSU campuses, that will improve your signal value and improve the types of careers that you can get in business moving forward. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, many of you are going to have those conversations again with your teachers, your family, your parents, your friends, maybe some of your bosses in jobs that you have right now. And you may decide that it just isn't realistic for you to get a bachelor's degree right now. And that's okay. Many people don't get a bachelor's degree and go on to have extremely successful careers in business and in many other fields. The challenge, though, is that when you're pursuing education after high school for something that isn't a bachelor's degree, there is not a lot of signal value associated with that degree. So what you're really trying to do is learn skills that you can use in the job market as quickly and inexpensively as possible. You don't want to go to a school where it takes a long, long time to learn the skills that you want to learn, and at the end of the day, not end up with a bachelor's degree. You want to try to make this process happen as quickly as possible. And there are really two options that I'm going to talk about today. There may be others, by the way, but these are the kind of the two most common options if you decide not to get a bachelor's degree. The first is to go to your local community college and get a certificate in one of the business disciplines. The second one, which is a little bit of a new one, are online private boot camps. So a boot camp is unlike college in that it doesn't give you credit towards a bachelor's degree. So if you go to a boot camp, there is no credit. On the other hand, boot camps are offered by private companies, and they can do them in a little bit of a different way than college. The main advantage is that they can offer them extremely quickly. So I'm going to talk about these two options moving forward for folks that are interested in business but are not interested in that bachelor's degree. So on the community college side, we have some pros and cons. The biggest pro of going to community college to get a certificate in business is that it is inexpensive. The credits are not very expensive. You can get a Pell Grant to pay for many of them if you or your family does not have a lot of money. You can get some loans to cover those amounts of money. So as long as you can cover your living expenses, you should be able to go to community college, and it should not cost you tens of thousands of dollars to do so. So you can get that certificate for a very low amount of money. Now, the con of going to community college for a business certificate is that the courses offered at the community college are tied to the academic calendar. This means there's typically a fall semester, there's typically a spring semester, and then there's typically like a summer break where you can either take some classes or you can basically work in a job or take a vacation. That means that in order to get your certificate, it may take a while. It may take 1 or 2 years to get a certificate. That's a long time. If you have to pay the bills for you or your family, 1 or 2 years without an income can really feel like a very long time. The other con with community college is that sometimes the curriculum it overemphasizes your knowledge of a certain subject and doesn't focus as much on the skills and tools. So for example, the accounting example I gave in the beginning for this framework of knowledge, skills, and tools, you may spend a little bit too much time learning about the theory of debits and credits and a little bit less time working with QuickBooks and really learning QuickBooks as well as you can in producing those financial models, some of those skills that folks in the business world are going to ask you to do if you get hired in an accounting job. So you may have to complement your education kind of on the side to make sure those skills and tools that you have in your arsenal are really good. The other option, as I mentioned earlier, is private boot camps. Now, the pros of a boot camp is that they are full-time and they're part-time programs as well, and some of them can be completed in as short a time as 12 weeks. So that means you're a few months away potentially from going from zero to a job, which is really amazing. And obviously you might have to search longer than that, and nothing is guaranteed in life, so you'll have to work quite hard. However, the short time frame means that you aren't necessarily looking at 1 to 2 years of time trying to learn these skills. It may only be a few months, and if you work really, really hard for those few months, you might be able to improve your standing in life substantially with a really great job. The other thing that's beneficial is that the boot camps are oftentimes hiring their teachers from the private sector. So these people tend to have the latest knowledge, skills, and tools that you need to get a job. And that can be really meaningful because, again, if you don't have that signal value of a bachelor's degree, you need to signal to the employer that you have those skills and tools and you can hit the ground running on day one. So learning the latest and greatest really has a big advantage when you don't have a bachelor's degree, because you can walk in the door and sometimes your knowledge, skills, and tools will be better than someone with a college degree. Now, of course, they have that signal value of the college degree, but you will have those skills and tools, and it's a little bit more of a fair fight. Now, the downside of boot camps is that they're obviously more expensive. These are not offered by the state of California. They're not supported by the federal government in any way. So they are more expensive. It's like a private company. The good news is that you can certainly finance these programs with loans. And there's also a unique structure called an income share agreement that can help to finance these expenses as well, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So I obviously worked for the community college system, so it's not really my job to tell you all about business boot camps, and I don't really work for a boot camp myself. So I just want to point you in the direction of a few resources that you can look at and explore this option more on your own. This is really a subject area where you need to do a lot of homework and make sure that if you are going in this direction, that you're fully aware of the costs, you're fully aware of the commitments that you're making, and really be informed. Personally, I think a great place to start is a website called Course Report. Course Report is not itself a boot camp. They're almost like the Yelp of boot camps. They offer reviews, student reviews of the different boot camps. They look specifically at the different kinds of courses that those boot camps offer, and they try to help you understand the pros and the cons of attending specific boot camps. And so this can be a really helpful tool to just research and learn more about specific schools and specific programs. And you can also search for the schools based on the type of program they offer, so you can try to find those programs in business. You can also learn more about financing your boot camps with private loans at a website called Skills Fund. Skills Fund has partnered with many of the leading boot camps across the country. And if you get accepted to attend one of those boot camps to receive, to study a certain topic at those boot camps, Skills Fund will give you a loan to attend. Now, the reason why they're giving you a loan is that many boot camps they try to basically work very hard to make sure that the job you're getting at the end of the day pays you a good salary. And they work with Skills Fund to share information on how much money their graduates are making, so that Skills Fund feels confident that when you graduate, you'll be able to get a job, a well-paying job that can pay off that loan. But again, do some due diligence on your own. This is just a resource for you. The other thing you'll want to learn about if you're thinking about going to a private boot camp is income share agreements. Let me move my little window here. So income share agreements are often abbreviated ISA. I wanted to point you just quickly to in some articles on a website called NerdWallet. This can help you really understand what an income share agreement is. But basically what an income share agreement is that a boot camp will accept you into their program, and they will pay for all of the fees for the courses themselves. So let's say the fees are $25,000. They will pay for those fees. And then what happens is that they guarantee that you will get a job afterwards that pays you a certain salary. So let's say, for example, that they are guaranteeing that you will have a job at the end that pays you $50,000 a year. And then once you've gotten that job, once you go through the program, complete the program, and get that job, then you start to pay them out of your income. That's the income share. You pay them some of your income, similar to a loan, until the money is paid off. Now, there's a lot of nuance to income share agreements, and every school has a different offering. So it's really important that you understand what they are, how they're used, and really make sure you go in kind of eyes wide open. But this is the second opportunity, because many people may not have the credit history to get a private loan to pay for boot camps. And since boot camps aren't backed by the federal government or a certain state, you're not going to be able to get a student loan from the federal government. So income share agreements are one other way to possibly skin the cat and pursue something you really want to do. So learn more about them at NerdWallet and then kind of go from there. Here's just a handful of examples of some of these boot camps that exist right here in Silicon Valley. So Climb Higher is a program that's being offered currently in Oakland. And they are training people to become Salesforce administrators. So Salesforce, as many of you might know, is a tool that people use to track the sales pipelines for different organizations. And people are hired at large companies to manage this software so that the companies can understand how many sales are in the pipeline, what's likely to close this quarter, what's likely to close next quarter. And you would be working with those types of systems as well as working with sales teams. And so effectively, you would be going to Climb Higher to learn a lot about this particular software tool. Another interesting program is called FlockJ. They're a startup that I believe came out of Y Combinator in Mountain View, California, and they train people how to become sales techs. So you would learn how to work at different companies and basically sell software to some of the business customers that are using those softwares, including companies like Zoom or Airtable or Gusto or Google. The last one is a nonprofit called Year Up. which is partnered with Facebook, and they have a campus at Facebook, and they also have a campus in San Francisco, I believe, where they basically do hands-on training and combined with a 6-month internship. So their program lasts a year, and you take certain classes for the first 6 months, and then you get an internship at a number of different companies in the second chunk of 6 months, and finish that program after a year. So these are just examples. Again, there's many, many more boot camps than just this. I'm just pointing you at some examples that you can look at of boot camps I'm aware of that offer programs for business. So again, check it out on your own and see what you think. If you're, as we shift our focus away from boot camps over to the community college, I wanted to show you some data here that we have from folks that are attending community college in the Bay Area, but are not getting a bachelor's degree. You can see here that the earnings, the average earnings for the last data was in 2018 for some of these different certificates that are being offered. The top one is real estate. The second one is accounting. And then kind of the third through fifth one are basically a lot of these different business administration certificates that are all kind of grouped together. So the best options from my perspective would really be, if you're not going to get that bachelor's degree, to try to focus in on real estate or accounting, assuming either of those is of interest to you. And the third option, of course, would be just to go to get a certificate in business administration. But I have some kind of cautions for folks that are interested in doing that, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So the real estate programs at community colleges, typically what happens is you take 3 college level real estate classes, and that makes you eligible to exams to your California real estate sales license or your California real estate broker's license. Now, these licenses effectively are the signal value that's kind of that you might otherwise get with a bachelor's degree, but they're effectively the certifications that are required in order to work in the real estate industry, doing things like selling leases for apartments, for townhomes, for office space, or for selling real estate as well. So again, selling houses, selling condos, things like this. So the benefit of this program, the real estate certificates that are offered in our area, is that they only take 3 college credits in order to sit for these exams. Now, you may, of course, have to do some extra studying on your own to pass those license exams. But the good news is that once you have your license, you can then get a job. Your first job would include things like becoming a real estate broker, or becoming a sales rep, or becoming a showing agent, where you would start out kind of, again, you're the lowest person on the totem pole, and you would start out by working with an agent or working with a broker, and you would be showing prospective customers the office space or the new house, things like this. And then once those folks were interested, you would hand off that contact to the broker, who would then work with them on the actual transaction. Now, the beauty of real estate is that it's an extremely competitive industry, which is challenging. But on the other hand, it's an industry where experience is really valued, and you just have to effectively work your way up. So if you're willing to put in the hard work, this is a great career path that does not require you to go to college. And you can basically get your license either in real estate sales, or get your broker's license, or even get them both, and then start working your way up in the industry by working for real estate brokers and just moving your way up until ultimately you can become a pretty well-paid person, particularly in the Bay Area, given the fact that even post-coronavirus, prices for sales in particular are still extremely high relative to the rest of the country. So this is a really compelling career path if you're not going to get a bachelor's degree, and taking 3 college level classes should not take you more than 1 or 2 semesters at most. Some of the real estate programs that are offered in our region would be at De Anza College, West Valley College, San Jose City College, and at Gavilan. So I just tried to show you a map here of where some of these programs are offered that you could potentially attend. And they may be offered at other schools as well, but I just focused on schools in Santa Clara. The next option I wanted to talk about a little bit here in terms of an option for for going to school for business without the bachelor's degree is accounting. So what you would do is you would go to a school and you would get your certificate in accounting. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's a barrier for having a long career in accounting, which is that most accountants have they become certified public accountants, and you cannot pass the CPA exam. You can't even sit for the exam without your bachelor's degree. So unlike real estate, where you can really work your way up and effectively the sky's the limit, there aren't any certifications aside from those broker's licenses that are really going to like hold you back. In accounting, you've got a little bit of a ceiling here, which is that CPA. And so that's a little bit of a downside, and probably why I would list this as second to real estate in terms of my options. On the other hand, an accounting certificate, again, should not take more than 1 or 2 semesters to get. And the good news is that there are many, many jobs. These are good jobs, they're office jobs. You're typically working with an accountant within a company, or you could effectively be the primary accountant at the company, and then working with a certified public accountant to produce the financial statements. And you may work on a couple different things. So you might become a payroll specialist. This is somebody who gets really good at running the payroll for different companies. This sounds really simple. It's actually quite difficult. You have to be aware of all of the different employee benefits that can be offered by the company. You have to take out deductions. You have to educate employees on the taxes that they have to pay on their salary and what withholdings they might want to do on their paychecks based on whether they have a big family or a small family. So it's actually quite a complicated space. And payroll specialists at larger companies can actually be a pretty well-paid position if you're running payroll for hundreds or thousands of people. The other common place these jobs might start out at is running the accounts payable or the accounts receivable. What does that mean? Accounts payable means paying the bills. So you would be the person who would receive the bills from all the different vendors. You would enter information into the accounting software, and then you would be trying to pay those bills in a way that makes sure that you get things like bulk discounts for certain goods. You pay them as late as possible so the business can hold on to its cash. You manage relationships with some of those third parties and make sure that the relationships are good. And on the flip side is, of course, accounts receivable. That means when you're sending invoices to the customers of a business and you're trying to collect that money from your customers. So obviously, this is extremely important because collecting those receivables is basically the cash that runs the business. And many people that get an accounting certificate will also end up becoming an office manager. So office managers, they used to be called secretaries, but that role has been substantially upgraded over the last couple of years. So a secretary used to be a role that would work with one single executive to do things like writing letters and making phone calls and scheduling appointments. That would be today what we would call an administrative assistant. But an office manager is something a little bit different. An office manager might be someone that works at a smaller company and runs many of the things. They purchase all of the goods that the business needs to run. So they purchase all the food for the kitchen, they pay all the bills, and they maintain the books of the business, on a regular basis. And then that business would hire a CPA to come in and convert all of those entries that the office manager made into QuickBooks and produce financial statements. So this is a job that can be a lot of fun because you're touching a lot of different parts of the business. But again, it does have a little bit of a ceiling because you can become an office manager of a larger and larger enterprise. But ultimately, at some point, if you want to move up in the world of accounting or finance, you will need that CPA. But nonetheless, the benefits of accounting are really that there's many, many different types of jobs. You can work for small businesses, you can work for large businesses, and it's really up to you. Just a great place to get your foot in the door and get some early business experience. Almost all of the colleges in Santa Clara County offer accounting programs. It's one of the most common programs at the community colleges. So the colleges in red here, Foothill, De Anza, West Valley, et cetera, you could go to any of those schools and get a certificate in accounting. I wanted to, in addition to accounting and real estate, which are degree programs that you can access at most of the colleges in the region, if not the state, there's two other options I just wanted to call out of somewhat unique programs in our region that have a good alignment with the labor market. So Foothill College recently partnered with Facebook to create something called a digital marketing certificate. So Marketing is a tried and true business discipline where you're trying to educate your consumers about the products that the business is making and hopefully drive them towards making a purchase of the product. Now, in the old days, marketing used to be primarily about purchasing advertisements in newspapers or magazines, or purchasing airtime on radio stations or television channels. Now, of course, large businesses will still use those channels for marketing. However, obviously, with the dawn of internet communications, marketing for many things has moved online. And the good news about that is the good news about digital marketing is that to be a really good digital marketer, to understand how to do Google ads or serve ads on Facebook or Twitter, or to run an Instagram account, these are skills that are easy to demonstrate to employers. And so this is a space that I think more and more will be about having certain skills and less about having a four-year college degree. So for example, if you go to a four-year college and get a degree in marketing, it's very unlikely that you're going to learn about how to create an Instagram account or how to run a Google AdWords campaign. On the other hand, this digital marketing certificate that Foothill College is offering is going to teach you some of those skills. So you will be coming out of that certificate program with skills and tools that some four-year college degree students don't even have. And if you work hard and really try to prove yourself, you can obviously position yourself to get one of these jobs. Because if you're an employer, if you're hiring a digital marketing person, you want to make sure that that person has the skills to do that job. And it's a little bit uncertain whether someone that comes out of a four-year college will be able to do that from day one. So that's really your opportunity. The second opportunity, the second kind of unique certificate that I wanted to talk about in our region is the retail management certificate that's offered at Gavilan College in partnership with the Western Association of Food Chains. So this retail management certificate was developed with Western Association of Food Chains, which are basically many of the largest supermarket chains. So supermarkets are one of these businesses where you do not make a lot of money. You are trying to constantly manage a huge amount of inventory. You have many different products. I mean, think of all the different kinds of cereals and baked goods and meats and cheeses and all these different things. You're trying to manage this huge complex set of inventory, and you're trying to sell things that have an expiration date. If you don't sell food, it's just going to rot on the shelves and you have to throw it away and lose money. So it's a very competitive industry. There's a lot of complexity to it. And this retail management certificate is going to help you get into that world and prove that you have the skills to work in that space. So that means that if you got a normal job at a supermarket, it might take you a while to kind of move your way up to running a certain department. So for example, running the dairy department or running the meat department. And this certificate is going to help you just to get a competitive edge over the many other people that are trying to work their way up from, let's say, a cashier into those types of positions. And it's going to set you a little bit apart from other people in that space. And this can be actually a shockingly lucrative place in our economy. If you manage a Trader Joe's or you manage a Walmart, you're getting close to a six-figure salary in this country. And because it's a difficult job and you have to learn a lot of these skills on the ground. So the first step to becoming the manager of one of these supermarket chains is obviously to have run your own department within that store and proven to everybody that you know how to manage inventory, you know how to manage teams of employees. It's actually quite a pretty interesting space. So the fact that Gavilan has worked with Western Association of Food Chains to develop this, it's really aligned with the needs of that industry, and it will probably help you set you apart in that space substantially. So aside from the certificates that I just mentioned, so we had real estate, we had accounting, and we had those two unique certificates offered by Foothill and Gavilan. There's many other business certificates, marketing certificates, etc. And I just wanted to talk about those in general. Obviously, I might have missed some very specific programs that certain colleges are offering. And obviously, over the course of time, colleges are going to be offering new programs that won't be included in this video. But what I want to say in general about these certificates is that they have the downside of being somewhat generic. And the problem with being generic is that you are going to go compete for jobs against people with the signal value of a bachelor's degree. And so if you have a generic business degree from a community college and you're competing for the same job as someone with a 4-year degree, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to lose. And so uh, what this means is that if you are just going to pursue kind of a generic business administration, let's say, certificate from your local community college that's not a transfer degree, you really are going to have to be prepared to hustle, hustle, hustle to get your first job. And the reason why, again, is that you don't have that signal value backing you up. You are going to have to prove to those employers that you can do it. And one of the ways you can prove it is that you're really going to have to basically supplement your education with self-education of those tools and skills that are used in business. So if you go, maybe let's say you don't want to become an accountant and you don't want to become a payroll person, it might still be valuable nonetheless if you get a business administration certificate to still learn about accounting software and learn how to use QuickBooks. It's so common. You might also want to learn how to use Google AdWords. You want to train yourself on some of these software tools that are very, very common in business so that your degree, your certificate might be a little bit generic, but you can go to someone in the business community and show them that you have skills that complement that degree. And that can help set you apart from all of the other students that are only getting that certificate and not trying to set themselves apart in some other way. So again, this is my big caution. It's not to say that you can't be successful with a certificate in business administration from a local community college. It's just to say that it's a very hard path to go down. And I want to make sure that you have your eyes wide open about those facts before you make a decision to go down that path. So I've gotten pretty much to the end of the presentation or things I wanted to cover. And I just wanted to point you at other space where you can go for some additional resources. So the California Community College System, they have a channel on YouTube, and they have a huge number of playlists. Many of these playlists are kind of boring. They're like administrative meetings for, the Board of Governors for the California Community College System. You're not really going to want to spend time watching those videos. However, they have a playlist called Salary Surfer, which is, they've got over 90 videos. And these are short videos that talk about all of these different programs and many, many more that I didn't even cover here today in both business and in many, many other disciplines. And this can just be a good space to go and just do some exploration. Watch a few videos about accounting, watch a few videos about marketing. I think YouTube can really be a great resource to explore some of these areas of business and really make sure that they are very interesting to you. So hopefully that YouTube channel will provide you with a great place to go after this talk to learn more about it. So those are the options as best as I can see them for people interested in business at the community college. And I just want to thank everybody for watching this video, and hopefully you found this information valuable. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me. This applies to students, teachers, faculty, administrators. I'm more than happy to answer questions and share resources. My email address is up on the screen. It's micah@baccc.net. Really looking forward to hearing from some of you students in the future with any questions you might have. And I wish everybody a huge amount of success in their future careers, whether or not they decide to get a college degree and whether or not they decide to get a degree in business. Thanks again for watching.